Hi everyone, yasas, que kalos irsate to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today we're going to be making one of my favorite Greek Christmas cookies, Melomakarona. These spiced cookies are soaked in a honey syrup. They're topped with spiced walnuts, a spiced walnut mixture, and they're just delicious and easy to make. I'll teach you how to make them step by step so that way you can add a little touch of grease to your holiday celebrations. Let's get started. Okay, we're going to begin by making the syrup for the Melomakarona, and I like to make a big batch of it because I like the cookies to be very, very gooey and moist and delicious. So in my pot, I'll add 2.5 cups of granulated sugar, 2.5 cups of water, a large cinnamon stick, and then I'll add the peel of an orange into it. This is going to cook over medium heat until the mixture comes to a boil and the sugar is completely melted. And then I'll turn the heat off and add 2 cups of honey and 1 to 2 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. Take it off of the heat and just set it aside, and the syrup is ready. We're also going to get the topping ready. So I have 3/4 of a cup of ground walnuts here. So I'll add about a cup of ground walnuts to my food processor and pulse these until they're finely chopped. And once they're almost at the consistency that I need them to be, I'll add 1 heaping teaspoon of ground cinnamon and 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves. Pulse that a few more times until they're finely chopped and the topping is ready. I'll just transfer it to a little bowl so that way the nut mixture is ready to be used as the garnish. So now it's time to make the cookies. They're so easy to make. We're going to combine the dry ingredients first in a big bowl. I have 3.5 cups or 500 grams of all-purpose flour. To it, I'll add 150 grams or 3/4 of a cup of semolina flour that's finely ground, a teaspoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, of course a heaping teaspoon is what I always go with, and then exactly 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves. Ground cloves tend to get a little bit bitter, so you don't want to go overboard with them. And then I'll zest 2 oranges into the mixture, whisk everything all together, and now we're going to get the wet ingredients together. So in a big bowl, I have 1 cup or 250 milliliters of light olive oil. This is the light olive oil, not the extra virgin cold pressed olive oil, because that's a little bit bitter and tastes too much like olives. You can use your favorite vegetable oil for this too. Whichever doesn't have flavor, that's the best oil that you want to use for this. Then we'll add 1/2 cup or 100 grams of granulated sugar, 3/4 of a cup of fresh orange juice, a teaspoon of pure vanilla extract, and 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. Whisk that all up and then slowly add the dry ingredients to the bowl. Once you can't whisk them anymore, you can switch to your hands or to a spatula. Be careful not to overmix, otherwise the cookies will end up greasy, because the more you mix this mixture, it starts to release the oil. You want the oil to stay in the cookies so that way it makes them nice and tender and not greasy. So once the mixture comes together and looks like this, you can do 2 things with it. You could roll the cookies out traditionally how we do it by hand. You just take about a walnut sized piece or a little bit bigger, and then you roll it into an oval or a round, whatever you like, and put it on the tray, and you pierce it a few times with the ends of a fork to kind of get that decorative design on top. Or my favorite thing to do is to roll these out about a 1/2 inch thick and then use your favorite cookie cutters to cut them out. I'm going with a festive snowflake cookie cutter and a Christmas tree cookie cutter just because they look so cute. Many times I make these into heart shapes or sometimes star shapes, but use whatever shape you like. And then put them on baking trays that are lined with parchment paper. Leave a little bit of room in between because they are going to rise a little bit because of that baking powder that's in there. And then again, poke some holes on the top using a fork. These are going to bake in a preheated 350-degree oven for about 25 minutes or until they're nice and golden. Make sure to switch the trays halfway through cooking so that way everything bakes evenly. Once the cookies come out of the oven, I squeeze them into one tray, and then I'm going to pour as much of the syrup over them as fits in the tray. After about 10 minutes, I'll flip them over, and if there's room for most of the syrup, which there should be because they start to absorb it really quickly, I'll pour that remaining syrup on top, and then I'm going to let them cool completely upside down so that way they could absorb as much syrup as possible. Once they're cooled, you can flip them over very gently and either transfer them to your serving platter or your storage container. Top them with the spiced walnut mixture, and then I also like to use these little stars here. You can find them in a cake decorating shop. You can decorate your cookies with anything you like. I just think This makes them a little bit more sparkly and pretty, but you don't have to add them. This is just something that I'm doing for the first time this year. I think they look beautiful with it on. And there you have it. Just like that, the Melomakarona are ready. They're perfectly sweet, and I like to soak them really well in the honey syrup. I know traditionally sometimes they're a little bit on the drier side, but since I was a little girl, I've always looked for the more soaked ones just because they're gooey and good, and they have so much flavor, and that's just the way I like them. I think most people like them like that. If you don't like them very syrupy, even though they're not soggy, they are perfect on the inside. You'll see just how good they are. They're not soaking or mushy or falling apart or anything like that. The syrup is held in them just perfectly, and it makes them sticky and delicious. But if you want less syrup, instead of pouring all of that syrup on top, you could just dip one by one or a couple of them in the syrup at a time for a few seconds. And I do have instructions on how to do that because I recorded a recipe with that method. I think it was last year. So I'll post it down below. It's on my blog, and it's also on the YouTube channel. But today I wanted to make these into little Christmas trees and snowflakes. I also topped them with decorative stars. You can find them either on Amazon, I'll put the link down below, or in a cake decorating shop, wherever they have specialty things for decorating cakes. They're just so delicious. You don't have to put the stars on top. You can put little sprinkles. There's just so many different decorations in cake decorating stores. You can make these extra special. I know that chocolate covered Melomakarona are popular in Greece right now. It's a little bit of a modern twist. Some people are filling them with chocolate. If you want me to teach you how to do that, comment down below and I'll work on a recipe for stuffed Melomakarona as soon as I can get to it. But I'm literally drooling. Let me do the taste test. Best part of making these videos. Perfectly sweet. They melt in your mouth. I always go a little bit heavier on the cinnamon than most people do. If it says a teaspoon, for me, that means a heaping teaspoon. I don't put too much of the cloves in there because if you go a little bit heavy on the cloves, they do lend a very bitter taste. So just the right amount, a quarter teaspoon is all you need in the batter and on top on the walnuts. I hope you guys give this recipe a try. If you do, let me know how they turn out in the comment section down below. If you want to print this recipe out, head on over to the website, dimitrasdishes.com. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I'll see you all next time. Yes, us.